Good morning, everyone. Oh, let's try that again. We're at Essex County College. I know we can do better than that. Good morning, everyone. Yes, thank you. My name is Dr. Kalfani. I'm the director of the Africana Institute here at Essex County College, as well as the director of the Center for Global Education and Experiences. I'm excited to be here for our annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. program. We're going to have an exciting program with some amazing voices, first of all, and we're going to have some great insights that I think that it's a propitious time for us to think about. As we embark upon yet another program looking at the legacy of the folks who struggled during the civil rights movement, I think that it's apropos for us as a community to look inward. And I think we're going to get some great insights into why and how to look inward in our reflections. Last year I gave the keynote address and we talked about 50 years later, right? So we have a lot of other kind of important ideas and concepts that help us to get to what those things mean. And as we look to embark upon this year, this Gregorian calendar year that looks at another time, we're almost approaching the year 2020, how quickly it has come. So I want us, as we think about 2020 just being around the corner, that, we 2 decades in, as we move down the road, what is your responsibility for the next 2 decades? With that said, though, I want to take this opportunity to invite up our president of Essex County College, Dr. Monroe. He is the current president, and he's going to give us some welcome remarks. So let's give him a round of applause, please.
Good morning, and thank you, Dr. Kalfani. Good morning. Oh, I understand that we have a house full of folks here from Essex County College and from Arts High School, and I think from that good morning, it sounded like I was here by myself. So let's try that again. Good morning. Good morning. It is good to see you all here today. It is with great pleasure, and on behalf of the Board of Trustees, and we have the Vice Chair of our Board, Johanna Wright, and the Cabinet and faculty and staff of Essex County College, we welcome you. We welcome you on this most important day, the day that Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would have turned 90 years old. Today's his birthday. And so we take time out today to recognize and to honor a giant in the history of mankind who have made the ultimate sacrifice on behalf of communities across this world. This is especially important and significant as we celebrate our 50th anniversary at Essex County College, a community asset, a community resource that grew out of struggle in the civil rights era, in the civil rights time. We actually sit at the intersection of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard. So we have a daily reminder of our responsibility, as Dr. Kalfani said, to look inward, to see what we can do to change our communities. You see, much of the issues, the challenges, the struggles that Reverend Dr., and I can say brother, because we are both part of the same fraternity, called out 50, 60 years ago, exist today. They exist today in a different form. We have an obligation, we have a responsibility to be the agents of change. So, Dr. Chavis, we sit at your feet today, ready to hear and learn from you. As you all know, Dr. King was a Nobel Peace Prize winner. He left a worldwide legacy, one that we honor today. So as we celebrate Dr. King's birthday, which would have been his 90th birthday, we want to remember the awesome responsibility that we have to educate ourselves and to motivate ourselves and to move our communities forward. And that's what Essex County College is all about. So on behalf of the Essex County College community, welcome. And let's hear from Dr. Chavis at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Monroe. I want to take this time to bring out the Essex County College Choir that is led by Professor Richard Austin. He will be accompanying them on piano. And I want to, before they begin though, I want to say we have, what high schools do we have here today? Central High. Let's give Central High a round of applause. We have Arts High. Let's give Arts High a round of applause. We have Newark Tech. Give Newark Tech a round of applause. Do we have any other high schools here today? Okay, we have a few others that might be en route. So I ask you all to stand, please, as we sing the Black National Anthem.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us. Above us, only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Aha. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope one day you'll join us and the world can live as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. Can you imagine all the people sharing all the world? You say that I'm a dreamer. Oh, but I'm not the only one. I hope one day that you'll join us and the world can be as one.
All right, we want to bring the world together, so we work together and do what we have to do. And with that said, we bring up our high school contingent. We have a group here from Arts High School. This is not the first time they've been here to join us. And they're going to sing 2 numbers for us, and they're led by their instructors, Scott Cumberbatch. Let's give them a round of applause.
Name
Come on, clap your hands like this. He is mighty as a mountain. He is wider than a river. He is deeper than the ocean. Jesus is his name. He is strength when there was weakness. He is joy when there was sorrow. He is food for souls that hunger. Jesus is his name. Say Jesus. Jesus is his name. Oh, every day the same. Yesterday, hey, Jesus. Say Jesus is his name. Oh, every day the same. Come on. Yesterday, today, Jesus. Oh, he is lily of the valley. He is the bright and morning star. He is the rose of Sharon. Jesus is his name. Oh, he is joy when there is sorrow. He is the beginning and the end. He is the first and the last. Jesus is his name. Say Jesus. Jesus is his name. Every day the same. Yesterday, today. Jesus. Jesus is his. Oh, Jesus is his name. I like to call on Jesus just when I need him. I got to call on Jesus, the rose of Sharon, the great I am. Jesus, say healing in his name. He got to heal my body when I call on Jesus. He say power is his name. I got power to walk right, power to talk right. Yesterday, say yesterday. Come on, yesterday. Oh, yesterday. Oh, yesterday. Jesus. Jesus. Woo. Oh, say Jesus. Woo.
Well, I know y'all can do better than that now. Give these young folks some props up in here. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. See, I think when we think back at that time, we had the energy and it would move us, right? Amen? All right, all right. Now we're going to bring up to the stage, we're going to continue this message, this vibration. Look at it, he can't even calm down over there. See, the Spirit is moving him. So we're going to have Wade in the Water now, which is a Negro spiritual. And this is this is performed by the jazz band here at Essex County College, led by our Professor Dexter Allgood. So let's give them all good. Let's give them all a round of applause. And they're going to be backed up some by the choir.
When
when is the last time you heard Wade in the Water like that? I don't think you ever heard it like that. Let's give them another round of applause. This is what ECC has to offer you and so many others. So I want to take this time to bring our illustrious guests to the table, to the stage. We have none other than Dr. Benjamin Franklin Chavis Jr. as our keynote speaker. You know, it's interesting because we had met before, and you know, we were actually both going to Nigeria last year, and lo and behold, we just happened to see each other in the airport. And not only did we happen to see each other in the airport, we happened to be going to the same place, and we end up meeting the same people and on the same plane. So it was really interesting that how the world works. And we have a lot of powerful work we're doing on the continent and around the world. And so I want to just give you some background of Dr. Chavis. Dr. Chavis as an African-American civil rights leader born in Oxford, North Carolina. In his youth, he was an assistant to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., which motivated him to participate in the civil rights movement. At the age of 24, and even before the age of 24, he was involved in a variety of initiatives pushing the envelope of inclusiveness for people of African descent. And I think that this speaks to his character of why, and he's someone who has maintained the type of work that is the type of thing that we all want to aspire to. That is, you all here are watching and listening today for the words and wisdoms, the ideas of those who are your elders. I say on my email oftentimes, and people wonder why I put it there, I say that the fool speaks loudly about that which he or she doesn't know, but the wise sits at the feet of the elders. And so today, we all get to sit at the feet of one of our elders. Ashe? So at 24, Dr. Chavis rose to prominence nationally and internationally in 1971 when he was the leader of the Wilmington 10, civil rights activists who were convicted of arson because of their work, and it was taken out of context. And so now what you have here is that he was the oldest involved in the case, and so he got the longest sentence. But not only did he get the longest sentence, but then it also was overturned because there was a whole point about there was prosecutorial misconduct. So in other words, things that look some ways aren't always how they look. And sometimes we have to be willing to fight and resist to get the types of outcomes that are due to us. And so here's someone who fought and continues to fight in that process. So they were all freed, and they were all the sentences were taken away. He went from there to graduate school and studied civil rights and became the vice president of the National Council of Churches. The board of the NAACP elected Dr. Chavis as the executive director, and then he was there for a while, and then afterwards he was the national director of the Million Man March. Anybody heard of the Million Man March? Okay, so you have the national director of the Million Man March here. And not only was he the national director of the Million Man March 20 years later, he was also involved in. So you got some history, some legacy right here with you in Newark, New Jersey today. He also, Dr. Chavis is the CEO and co-chairman of the Hip Hop Summit Action Network in New York City, which was co-founded with Russell Simmons. Anybody know Russell Simmons? Okay, just wondering. Chavis collaborated with multi-platinum music producer and author Supreme King on Surviving the Game, How to Succeed in the Music Business. In that capacity, he was honored with the idea of his involvement was with the foreword in there, and he also was a technical advisor. Today, Dr. Chavis, in 2014, became the interim president and CEO of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, an African-American organization which focuses on supporting and advocating for publishers of the nation's more than 200 publishers for African-American news print organizations throughout the country. And so his impact continues to be felt from the time that he was a young man until now. He is an elder who gives us advice and insights, not just here at Essex County College, but around the world. So with that, please help me in welcoming to the table, to the stage, Dr. Ben Chavis.
This is the day that the Lord hath made. Dr. Monroe, president of Essex County College. I want to thank Professor Akio for the introduction. I want to thank all of you. I'm going to hold this mic because I want to make sure you can hear me. I bring you greetings from the National Newspaper Publishers Association, which represents all the black-owned newspapers in America. Today, as we begin 2019, the black press in America is 192 years old, 192 years. In 1827, in March of 1827, 192 years ago, Freedom's Journal was first published in New York City. And since 1827, the black press has not missed a week printing somewhere in America black news, black culture, affirmation of our struggle for freedom, justice, and equality. Before I get into my remarks about the significance of the 90th birthday of Martin Luther King Jr., I just want to thank once again all those brothers and sisters who performed. Let's give them a hand. From the high schools as well as from Essex County College. We are an African people, and you cannot understand who we are if you don't understand our music, our culture, our art, our poetry, our religion, our spirituality. Professor Akil and I were together in Nigeria, as he mentioned, about 5 months ago. And we were reminded in Ife, Nigeria, that African people, we've been about this for a long time. In fact, in Ife, we were at a community where the spirit of Yoruba was founded 5,000 years before Christ. So don't let anybody tell you that other people introduced us to God, or other people introduced us to prayer, or other people introduced us to spirit. We are the original people. And because we are the original people, we have to make sure that nobody tampers with our originality, or our identity, or our sense of purpose. And yes, 90 years ago, the world was blessed with the birth of Martin Luther King Jr. I had the privilege, sisters and brothers, at a very early age. I was only 14 years old. I became a staff member. I was the youngest staff member for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference in my home state of North Carolina, led by Dr. King. And I want to thank my parents for allowing me to work as a teenager in the civil rights movement. And I grew up in the movement. And I want to thank all of you for coming out today, because I think we should use, President Monroe, we should use this day not only to reflect back on Dr. King's contributions, his legacy, his life, his dream, but we should also use this day to say, now, what are we going to do about the contradictions? What are we going to do about the challenges that we face today? You see, my brothers and sisters, on this 90th birthday of Martin Luther King Jr., the federal government is shut down. The most powerful, the richest nation in the world, but yet its government is shut down. And it's shut down because the people in the White House don't understand God's house. I know that this is I'm not going to violate church-state situation, but if Dr. King were alive today, he would be saying no to Donald Trump. He would be saying no to Donald Trump. And I would say that one of the things we learned in the civil rights movement a long time ago in the 1960s, it's important for us to be vocal, not to be silent. This is no time for black people in America to be silent. This is no time for Latino brothers and sisters to be silent. And I understand President Monroe told me that this is a very diverse college in terms of the student body population. Diversity shows you the blessing. We are all one humanity. No matter what language, no matter what place on earth you were born, we're part of one humanity. And the first thing I want to say about Dr. King is that Dr. King taught all of us that if you struggle for justice anywhere, you have to struggle for justice everywhere. And a lot of times, if you see what's going on the border of the United States, the southern border, some of us would say, well, that's just the struggle around our Latino brothers and sisters. Those are our brothers and sisters. Anybody that treats women and children wrong treats all of our families wrong. You know, I know I have a time now. That's just my preliminary introduction. I just want to get warmed up here. You see, I believe that we've been blessed as a people. We're not cursed. We're blessed. But we are taught in the Bible and in the Quran that you have to utilize your blessing. You have to not take life for granted. In the Bible, in the Quran, it says that trial and tribulation is for purification. And I believe that. But that means, Dr. Monroe, that black folks in America and Latinos too, we ought to be the most purified brothers and sisters in the world because we've had all the trial and tribulations. What we're going through now, we've gone through before. Suppression of voting rights, suppression of our ability to have adequate health care. You know, there are a lot of things. But I think the thing about Dr. King that we want to focus on is that Dr. King rose above the contradictions. Dr. King rose above the negativity. He refused to allow the people in power at that time in the 1950s and 1960s define who he was. That's why I started out by saying we are an African people. We have a right to claim who we are. And we have the right to claim that the God who created all of the world is the God who created us. And so if we believe that, then we cannot accept anything less than what is right, our God-given right. And don't let anybody tell you that the state can take away your rights. What God gives you, can't nobody take away. And so what we have to do is to refortify ourselves. So in preparation for today's remarks, I just have a few things I want to run past you. If you read any of the books by Martin Luther King Jr., and he wrote a lot of books, but his last book was entitled, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community. And in this book, as in other books that he wrote, he talked about the beloved community. What is the beloved community? The beloved community is a community where we do not allow race simply to put us in a place where we accept discrimination, where we accept less than full freedom, justice, and equality. The beloved community was that we have to love each other. And I know, Professor Keel, one of the things that we have to struggle with is to get our own people to treat each other right. You know, because we know when folks, I get upset every time that we get upset when there's a police brutality matter, but we don't get upset when we don't treat each other right. You have to, if you don't love yourself, if you don't love your family, if you don't love your community, if you don't love your college, if you don't love your city, your state, it's hard to love somebody else. And so the beloved community from Martin Luther King's perspective is that it's a community that's striving toward equal justice, striving toward empowerment. In Dr. King's later years, he not only preached and organized and mobilized for social justice and racial justice, he organized for economic justice. And I just want to talk to you a little bit about this economic justice. Because in 2019, according to the United States Department of Commerce, people of African descent here in the United States, we spend over $1.3 trillion in the economy. Trillion. We are the richest former slaves in the world. We're rich. We're not poor, but poverty starts in your mind. And if Dr. King were here, he would challenge us. What are we spending $1.3 trillion on every 12 months in the United States? And then we wait for others to do for us what God wants us to do for ourselves. So Dr. King organized the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, started by the church. I'm so glad one of the choir singers spiritual. We would not have had the Black Freedom Movement without the Black church. Amen? Dr. King was a Baptist minister called by God Almighty. He preached and organized, but he believed in practicing what he was preaching. A lot of times we quote scriptures, but we don't live the scriptures. Or we hear the word, we know the word, but we don't live the word. And so what we have to do is to be re-inspired every time we celebrate Dr. King's birthday, every time we gather for these important programs across the United States. I can't think of a better place to be, Dr. Monroe, than to be right here at Essex College today on the 90th anniversary of Dr. King's birthday. And so when you remember Dr. King's last speech to us that night in Memphis in 1968, when he said, look, I've been to the mountaintop. I've looked over and I know that we're going to reach that promised land. He said he may not get there with us. He didn't. But he told us to keep on marching, keep on organizing, keep on mobilizing. And I know there are some in the audience, I see some facial expressions. Some of y'all say, well, this is not a time to march. March doesn't change anything. Well, people who say that never marched. Marching is therapeutic. Standing up, speaking out for yourself is therapeutic. You know, and I'm come from a generation, and I thank Brother Professor Akil. Yeah, I am an elder. In hip-hop, they know me as an OG. Some of y'all know what that means. That's what I am. And most of the young people in here, they don't know me, Professor Akil, from the Wilmington 10 or from the NAACP or from the black newspapers. They know me from the movie Belly. I was the minister in the movie Belly with DMX and Nas. That's right, I see some of y'all have watched that movie. Because visual image is very important to us today. And I think that back in the Civil Rights Movement, even when we organized the Wilmington, with the Wilmington 10 and when we organized the Million Man March, we did not have cell phones. When I was sitting in your office, Professor Keel, waiting for the program to start, I watched everybody pass by the office. Everybody was into their cell phones. And that's okay. This is an instrument. But don't let this be your identity. It's what you get from it. It's how you use it to mobilize. I think technology is important. A lot of you should hopefully are majoring in some form of education that will get you a good job. Right now, Dr. Monroe, there are millions of jobs in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. They don't have enough people to fill those jobs. And sometimes I think our young people don't get the right encouragement on the right path. Education is very important. Dr. King had his PhD in his 20s. He was a brilliant brother. He believed in education, and he believed in study. Those of us who worked in SCLC, we had a requirement. We not only had to read the Bible, but we had a reading list. Professor Kidd, we had a reading list that were books that we had to read to study, because you can't change what you don't understand. We have to study, we have to work hard, and then we have to pass on that legacy to young people. I'm looking at you today, beautiful group of young brothers and sisters and other ages in here. We have to raise up a new generation of freedom fighters, a new generation of, you say, well, we want to keep Dr. King's dream alive. Absolutely. But we keep his dream alive by making sure we improve the quality of life of our communities. We have to work hard. I don't think because Trump is in the White House we should rest. Or because he says things that are negative to divide people, we shouldn't let anything divide us. We have to stay together and come together and keep pushing forward to make progress. And that's why I come today not as a pessimist, but as an optimist. Because I know the spirit of Martin Luther King Jr. is still alive. I know that the spirit of Frederick Douglass is still alive. I know the spirit of Fannie Lou Hamer is still alive. The spirit of Rosa Parks is still alive. The spirit of all of our freedom fighters is still alive. What we have to get in touch with the spirit of our people. When Professor Akil and I were in Nigeria, we got in touch with the spirit of African people that's centuries old. And I want to just encourage all of you, particularly the young students here today, whether you're in high school or college, do the best that you can to get the best education. It is a key that will unlock doors for the rest of your life. And don't ever stop trying to educate yourself. We have to learn something new every day and pass it on to our offspring and to our generation and family. The last thing I want to say is that Dr. King's most famous writing was not the I Have a Dream speech. That was his most famous speech. But his most famous writing was the letter from the Birmingham jail. And in this letter, Dr. King was responding to members of the clergy that were criticizing him for allowing young people in the movement. And he began that letter by saying, look, people will never get their freedom just by asking the people who took away the freedom to give it to them. He said the oppressed always have to demand freedom from the oppressor. The oppressor never voluntarily gives up freedom. But when the oppressed organize and mobilize, we can not only demand freedom, we can get freedom, justice, and equality. During most of the 1970s, I was in prison. Dr. King was killed in '68, and we decided we're going to keep his spirit alive. And in my home state of North Carolina, they still hadn't desegregated the schools. So in 1971, I was sent to Wilmington, still trying to keep Dr. King's spirit alive with the SCLC and with the United Church of Christ Commission for Racial Justice. I'm not going to tell the whole story, but I'm going to give you the point, the main point. In '71, we were in a black church, President Monroe, and I know in Jersey, they probably don't have the Ku Klux Klan. But in North Carolina, the Ku Klux Klan came over to the church and shot up the church. And we were just trying to get education for our children. Nixon was still president. They put us in jail, all 10 of us. I was 23 at the time. Others were 16 and 17-year-old high school students. They sentenced us in 1972 to 282 years in prison in my home state of North Carolina. Obviously, we did not serve all that time. We filed appeal. We decided we were going to not allow them to take away our freedom without fight. And the reason why I'm telling you this story is that I decided, well, if you're going to put us in prison because we are organizing and mobilizing black folks, I'm going to continue to organize in prison. I'm not going to sit there and just count the days off. In other words, they can lock you up, but they can't lock Jesus out. You know, they can put you in a situation. Sometimes we allow our situations to define us. Don't do that. So what I did, I had always worked on my master's degree at Howard. I transferred my credits to Duke University. So while I was in prison, I got my master's of divinity degree from Duke University, magna cum laude, while I was in prison. I wasn't going to let, in other words, I wasn't going to serve time. I was going to make time serve the movement. And here in New Jersey, there's something going on with this disproportionate mass incarceration. We got too many of our young people in prison, too many of our juveniles in juvenile institutions. We got to do something about it. If Dr. King was alive today, he would be leading a movement to get our people out of prison, to get our people out of jail who should not be there. And so we got a lot of reasons why we celebrate Dr. King's birthday. You know, and he would be happy with Stevie Wonder's song, Happy Birthday. But he'll be more happy to see everybody in here standing up, holding hands, joining the movement, and making our struggle for freedom, justice, and equality real, not just for a small group, but for every brother and sister in the state, every brother and sister in the state, every brother and sisters in the country, all over the world. We got to keep pushing forward, keep pushing forward. And I believe, as James Weldon Johnson said, as I conclude, that the God of our weary years, the God of our silent tears, has not left us alone. God is with us, but God expects us to stand up and keep Dr. King's dream alive in everything that we do from this day forward. So next year, when we come back for the 91st anniversary, we can say, this is what I've done to keep Dr. King's dream alive. This is what I've done to fight for freedom, justice, and equality. Thank you, Essex County College. Thank you for celebrating Martin Luther King Jr. God bless.
All right, everyone. I know we can do a little better than that here at Essex County College. As I was saying, I know we can do better. I appreciate that. I appreciate all the high school students that have came today. Let's give the high school students a round of applause and their principals, their staff. We really appreciate your presence. We know that these types of discussions and words are important for you all to hear, and some younger ones who are in the audience today. All these things are important for us. And I want you to start thinking about a couple of things. Before people start to mosey out, I want to make a couple of points that later today, the People's Organization for Progress is having their rally at 4 o'clock. I believe it's at the Martin Luther King Jr. Statue on Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, right over next to the courthouse, across the street. Yes, at the MLK statue. Then next week, the West Orange African Heritage Organization is going to have an MLK brunch. There's also going to be the Human Relations Commission in West Orange is having a free program in the morning. So there's lots of programs going on. Make sure that these programs are something that you go to, you take a friend to, take a date to. Make your date and whatever else you do, make it educational. Make it something that you have an opportunity to learn from and share your learning with somebody else. One of the things I want you to think about is that when you get information, the best way to show that you appreciate it is to give it to somebody else. Take what you've got today from Dr. Chavis, from the beautiful music and the stories and the songs behind the music, and give it to somebody else. Share it with somebody else. And as we move into African History Month, although African History Month is 12 of them for me, as we move into February, I want you to think about that Carter G. Woodson started African History Month. It was really Negro History Week in the beginning, but he started it as a tasking of people to get you to remember that really what he wanted you to do is to do work for the 11th month and come back and report during February. February, we think, was the shortest month that we have to celebrate, but actually the way it's set up, if you really study it, you have 11 months and you come back and report in February. So let us take this time to think about what we're going to report back in February. Let's have some report out about our contributions to the struggle for people of African descent in this coming February. And last thing I want to say was let's give both choirs another round of applause. They did a wonderful job. So that's all for us today. Thank you for coming, and I hope you enjoyed yourselves and got as much as you possible from this. Have a good afternoon. Thank you very much.